All right. Good evening to those of you on the East Coast. Good evening also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much for joining us. You taking a look not only in the background that I have, but also in the title that you're seeing. Know that I have a terrific guest on tap for you guys. They do not need any introduction. They are friends of the show. They've been, been on the show before, and they have, quite an impressive resume. Not just when it comes to, what they've done thus far as an actor, but also as an author. So you've seen them as an actor with their talents, not just in shows such as Hercules and Xena, and of course Spartacus, but as an author with Tenduria Apocalypse, as well as Dead Man's Land. And what you just saw just now is their current work known as The Nowhere Man. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show Barry Duffield. Let me bring him on now.
I'm back.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. It's a casual Sunday.
Right. Well,
How you doing?
greetings from the past. Because little do the folks know that are watching right now, Barry, you are where? You are in New Zealand.
Auckland,
So
New Zealand, and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's 11 o'clock at night for you, isn't it?
yes, it is. So greetings from the past. You are in the future, sir. Um, so with that said, first and foremost, I know it's been a while since you have, as I said, been here on the show. And I know you have been hitting the pavement with various, projects that you've been doing in that time. How have things been, and just to check in, how you doing?
Well, man, it's been pretty tough. I mean, for all of us, right? The last 3 years have been so unpredictable. I've been trying to make lemonade out of lemons. So, I'm sitting at home during the big lockdowns and working on scripts. I'm working on this book that I've said to you. I'm just trying to get it right. I had the three books out there. I've got two films in Australia and we're development with them. One of them is the film rights from The Nowhere Man that I sold about 3 years ago to a company called Lady of the Light Productions with a fantastic producer who called Lucinda Bruce. Uh, so I've just been busy, like I said, trying to make lemonade from lemons.
I hear you. I hear you. And so, I feel just to hit the ground running, can you tell me how this story came together? Starting the Nowhere Man.
Yeah, sure. I was going to say I try not to lie here, but I was going to say I grew up in the Northern Territory, but I've never grown up. I was raised in the Northern Territory in Australia in the 1970s. I think my parents were English, and they came out to Australia, and my dad promptly took us up to the Territory. So we came out of a very civilized Commonwealth country to a very dangerous Commonwealth country. Sorry, we grew up in a place where I would say, without doubt, most Australians would say the same thing, that you live in a place where almost anything and everything that can kill you is in one place. So I grew up in the Territory and I didn't notice what it was like when I lived there. But once I got out of the Territory and I started to grow up and I realized the difference between good and bad, light and dark, that there was a real issue with the place. And there was a real issue with the Territory, and it was a real issue in Australia, and that was the treatment of the Indigenous. And I wanted to do something that highlighted that without getting into a whole preachy history story. I wanted to tell that as a thriller, and I wanted my hero to be my lead character to be the hero of the story, to be Indigenous. But I couldn't write a story about an Indigenous Yolngu man because I'm not Yolngu. So what I did do, I entered this story in the same way that James Cameron did with something like Titanic, where he told you the story that was all about fact, but he added two characters that didn't exist. So fact and fiction blended together. And I was also extremely interested in the time period, which was, like I said, the 70s. And in the 70s, in 1974, if your audience are too young to remember, we had a cyclone in the Northern Territory that was called Cyclone Tracy.
Sure.
It was the biggest storm to ever come through, and it tore Darwin off the map. So I wanted to get into this because I think partly it was about paying for my own sins of the past and telling a story that I think needed telling.
Sure, sure, sure. And I feel like that's a great segue in terms of my next question, and that's just the idea of, I would say, authenticity, because there are, with the characters that you have in this story, in terms of their what they do for a living, and kind of capturing what their life is like, their day-to-day life is like. Can you talk a bit about that in terms of perhaps doing research of those particular jobs? I know you commented on the background with the background that you have, but I guess maybe even with the main character of their background in law, and capturing what their day to day may be like in a courtroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Um I definitely did my research. So I researched lawyers. I researched some of the incidents that were happening around the land rights cases of the day, and I looked at transcripts, and then I plowed my way through the transcripts, and then added the drama where I needed to add it. I also did a lot of research with indigenous, so mixed race indigenous guys, and I spoke to a few. We spoke quite intimately about their past, and some of the stuff that's in the script and in the book is direct quotes from them. The whole thing about the stigma of not being black and not being white, and being stuck somewhere in the middle, where in Australia at the time they wouldn't admit that they were Aboriginal. They would say they was from somewhere like Mauritius, because it would be less of a stigma in their minds for them. And the reality was that that was what would have happened.
Sure, sure, sure. And with that being said, I know we were talking about it a bit offline, but commenting on just some of the themes that are at play in this work. And one thing that immediately comes to mind is just that idea of trauma, and how, with many of the characters, the trauma that they faced in their formative years, in their upbringing, has had has had probably more than they would care to admit or realize, had a drastic effect on the people that they have, shaped into as adults. So can you speak to that, and some of the themes that are also at play, like in the story?
Yeah, absolutely. For this character, I didn't want somebody who was going to be who would find their way out of being bitter and twisted, but his past shaped him into somebody who was quite bitter. Um, I think if we all go back and we look at how we were bullied and how it shaped us, there was the one thing that kept sticking in my mind. It's not the event that happened to you; it's the how you dealt with it that defined you. So I really wanted to find that rite of passage between somewhere between where it could shape you into bitterness, or where you could find a light in all the darkness.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just as we were commenting on before, and you must be a psychic, because like I was going to get there at some point, in our conversation together, is many of the stories that you have done thus far, whether it's graphic novels, or even with this novel in and of itself, they are cinematic in terms of how they are presented, whether it's to the reader or to the person who's taking in not just the what's being written, but what's visually on the page, when we're talking graphic novels. So I'm assuming you already commented on there being a extended life, if you will, with this story in another medium. So where is the progress with that? Because as you're reading the story, I'm immediately thinking of how how this could be pictured. Like, and maybe it's just in the way it was written. Like, I can picture and visualize it as either a mini series or film. But you probably are way ahead in that. So can you comment on where that stands?
Well, I love hearing that, because that's exactly where it's supposed to be. Uh, all three came from screenplays originally. All three had done really well in competition. And I suppose my angle for this was, I'm looking at that it costs so much to get a film made that you're blessed if you get one done.
Sure.
So I wanted a medium where I could put it out there where it wasn't just sitting in my cupboard hoping that someone would put millions of dollars into making it into a film, that somewhere people would get to see what it is and enjoy the story as much as I did writing it. So it was any medium that gets that story out, because I'm a storyteller.
Gotcha. So, I mean, you had commented on it before. So where would you say, or maybe it's just too early at this point to specify exactly like where it stands? Like where are you guys currently at with getting this story told? Not outside
With
of the literary medium.
Yeah, with both graphic novels, nowhere yet,
Okay.
but I'm pushing those. I chase those all the time. It just may be a matter of time. With the Nowhere Man and another one I have called Hellion Rising, they're both with a production company called Lady of the Light Productions.
Right. Okay.
They're based in Victoria,
Okay.
and my producer is called Lucinda Bruce, and she's amazing. I find this really interesting is that I work a whole lot better with women than I do with men. So every time I've found a really great producer to work with, it's been a female producer.
Gotcha.
And it's not just their sex. So there's something about the sensibility of working with women. But Lucinda is amazing. And just a footnote, she's at home. She's feeling quite sick at the moment. She went in, she had an operation, and they cut her throat and went
Oh,
to
wow.
work on her spine through her neck.
Whoa. Okay.
She sent me the photographs of that. It was disturbing.
Oh my. Oh my. Oh man. All right. So that was actually what I was going to hop into next, Barry, was, what was up next. So even outside of, the project that you had just commented on, or, are there any other things that, you can, comment on as well, or maybe it's still early days with, being able to announce them or talk about, in the early stages right now?
Well, we're in development in Victoria with both of those. So
Right.
we were planning on shooting way previous. It's interesting, when COVID hit, it shut us down for shooting Nowhere Man. It was a blessing in disguise because it gave me more time to go back and write the book. And then when I wrote the book, I went, the script isn't good enough. So I went and I rewrote the script based on the book. And then when I finished the script, I went, the book's not good enough. So I went back to the book, and then I went back to the script, and I went back to the book, and then I was driving myself nuts. But it gave me a lot of time to perfect that script. So if we had shot pre-COVID, I think it would have been a good-ish film. But now it's going to be a great film.
Well,
hang on, just going to patting myself on the back.
Well, I will tell you this. I already have been picturing, even as I was going through the story, picturing who I could see. And I'll talk with you about this offline, but already I have some casting thoughts. Maybe it's already, I mean, even though I know I'm not in casting, with what you have with that story, but I have some thoughts of some folks that could bring those characters to life. So
did you think of Spartacus at all when you were looking at the casting?
I was in that regard, but there were some other folks that came to mind as well that I feel they have the appropriate, they're on the appropriate wavelength in terms of the wheelhouse that I have seen them do thus far in their career, and I feel like they would be perfect for those roles. So
I can share a couple of things for you because these things are locked down. Now, remember when I tell you this?
Yes.
So if I tell you that a certain person is in, it's all pending where they are in their schedule when we go to shoot.
Okay.
So if we've got that person locked down and they've agreed to be in the film, which the ones I'm about to tell you have,
okay,
we may lose them as we go along. I hope not, because one of them's a really great personal friend as well.
Okay.
I can tell you about who we brought in for the special effects. So if you've ever seen a movie called Rogue.
Yes.
Rogue's about a giant killer crocodile in Australia.
Yes.
So the guys who did that are on board to do our croc stuff.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay.
Yeah. Because we'll be shooting none of that stuff in the Northern Territory, because if you shoot in the Territory and you put an actor in the water, you've pretty much just killed them. I swear to God, there's a river up there called the Adelaide River that I would give you a life expectancy of about 10 seconds when you hit the water.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You would be torn to pieces.
Wow.
So actor-wise, we have Gray, who's our lead actor, is just did a brain loss. Hang on.
All good.
I know his first name, Damien Hunter.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
Damien Hunter,
Okay.
Damien is playing, yeah, and he's incredibly talented. He also lent a hand writing the script.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool.
And my producer had a hand in writing the script as well. So they both came in, and their input was invaluable. And the thing that was going to make this really make it or break it was going to be who played the lead bad guy. So I got Simon Merrills to play.
No way.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Simon, Marcus Grassis, is coming in to play Hopkins.
No, yep. I know exactly. Yeah, I know Simon.
He will be incredible.
That's what's up. Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, now remember, it all depends upon Simon's schedule. So we've got him in theory, but we still have to go through all the hoops and time and scheduling. But so far, so good.
Yeah, indeed. It's funny you brought up Simon because I was just recently watching Rings of Power. He's in Rings of Power. So
you heard the story about that? He came here for 5 days to shoot it.
Okay.
But he was stuck here for a year because of all the lockdowns. So 5 days work and then locked in the country for a year.
Wow.
We hung out a lot. We hung out a lot because he was stuck in that hotel room, and I just went and picked him up as often as I possibly could.
Hopefully, I know sometimes well maybe now that since things were locked down, you guys didn't have a chance to like do any like, because I think I've seen that you guys like dirt bike or something like, or you guys do that. Maybe that
from
you
way
don't
back.
do as much anymore, but yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Barry, man, it's always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for hopping on all the way from New Zealand. Appreciate you as always. Before I let you,
absolute pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. But before I let you go, as always, can you tell folks? Oh no, first, before tell folks where they can find you, I wanted to also put this up as well. That you guys can currently buy Nowhere Man is available to purchase. I put the link down there that you guys can check out, and I'll also put it in the description as well that you can buy. But yes, Barry, if you could tell folks where they can find you.
They can find me on Instagram under Screen Guy 69. They can find me on Facebook. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on Twitter. I'm everywhere.
Absolutely. And again, I want to thank Barry for hopping on. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there. And just a quick announcement, just make sure that you are on tomorrow as we will be doing our normal review of the Star Trek universe show. So tomorrow we will be continuing to cover Star Trek Lower Decks. But with that out of the way, thank you guys again so much for watching. Be safe out there and see you soon.
Thanks, Brandon.
Bye.